the old joke about you go to the doctor and say, doctor, it hurts when I do this. And the doctor says, well, then don't do that.
Yeah.
Right.
The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning. It's a fabulous morning, Tuesday, and we're here with Dr. Temple Grandin, and we've already had technical difficulties. I am told that we are live right now on YouTube, but that we have not been able to go live on Facebook. So I'm asking everyone who's watching us on YouTube to go to your Facebook and tell people to come and watch us on YouTube, because we're here with Dr. Temple Grandin, and I don't know, the internet is broken. But we're still here, and Dr. Grandin is ready to answer your questions, and so you can be sending them into us on YouTube right now. We will get this reposted on Facebook later on today, but I don't know, Facebook is not my friend today, or the internet is not my friend. I'm not sure which one, but I'll tell you who I do count as a friend is Dr. Temple Grandin. She's one of my favorite people on this planet, and she is a celebrated author and a teacher and an advocate. And right before we went live, we were talking about how books, ebooks, and hardcover books, and how it might be a little bit difficult to get books, but we want you to know that it is
easy to get. Excuse me, I just did something that might make the network. Ebooks,
we were talking.
Ebooks aren't where the problem is. Ebooks work fine. Amazon's got plenty of ebooks. That's where.
But it's the hardcover that people might think is hard.
Paper, it's the physical books where there's a problem.
But
it's like the internet's gotten overloaded. All the warehouse distribution supply chains are also completely overloaded.
But there are a couple of places where they can go to get your hardcover books, and they won't have a big delay, and there won't be a big wait. For instance, they can go to Future Horizons,
right,
to their website, and they can order all of your books from right there.
Yeah,
so
all my physical books are available there, and then I have some textbooks, and one of my textbooks publishers is going to be setting up a website to distribute directly for physical books.
There you go. So don't despair. Don't despair. Don't do without books, but find different places to order them if they're being held up for you. So Temple, we're so thrilled to have you twice in the month of April. The last time we talked to you was April 2nd, World Autism Awareness Day. We just want to do it first because we got tons of questions that have already come in.
Okay.
But first, just want to check in with you. How are you doing in this period of isolation?
Well, I'm working right now on updating my Improving Animal Welfare, a Practical Approach book. I have a number of guest authors in that. It's a textbook, which makes it a little pricey since it is a textbook. And most of my guest authors are getting things done. Actually, I've had plenty of time to work on it. I might be doing an even better job of updating it. Been looking up on all kinds of articles to add to it right here. This is stuff I just looked up this morning. I print out.
I always love to know what you're researching, because the last time we had talked to you, you were researching protein symmetry, and it was some beautiful artwork. As you said, art in your body. What were you researching this morning, or is it secret?
It's not a secret. I was simply looking up problems with older dairy cows, and that sometimes they get into very bad condition. And I was trying to just get some updated data on that. Because
very cool.
The second edition came out in 2015, and for the new 20 or 21 edition, I want to try to have the newer references. It's not changing a great deal. It's just updating it. So I was just looking up new information on bruises and survey that my student did at cow-calf producers on management practices.
Very cool. I was telling you earlier that the first time I met you, the first time I interviewed you, we brought, one of the people on our crew brought cows, plastic cows, and you signed this one for me. You actually signed a couple of them, and Autism Live gave some away to some really incredible people. I don't know if you know, that's how we ended up going to NASA together.
Yes.
You signed a cow for me, and I gave it to one of the flight directors at NASA, and he was like, "Is this what I think it is? Is this a cow signed by Temple Grandin?" And I said, "Yeah." And he was like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you've met her." And I said, "She would love to come here." And why haven't you invited her? And that's how that whole thing happened. We went to NASA together and toured. It was Temple, my small crew, and what was it, like 5 astronauts that were following you around all day?
That was like a super, super fun trip.
It was a great day. I have the video from it, and at some point we have to make a short film about that, about you going to NASA, because it's some pretty fabulous video. But okay, that's neither here nor there. Let's get into some questions, shall we? Because we have a lot of people voting. I just want to tell everybody, I have pages of questions that people wrote in. Can you see multiple pages? Plus, which we're taking questions right now on Facebook, on YouTube, on Periscope, and on Twitter. So if you are on one of those mediums and it seems that I am ignoring your question, please know that we're buried in questions, but keep them coming in. Okay, first question. I really want to know how Dr. Grandin started eating any kind of food. Did she work on sensory issues? Did she just decide to start trying different foods? My son is 11 years old, and since he was 2 years, became very selective. He says that he will eat once. He says he will eat once he went to secondary school, but he changes his mind and keep telling me that when he turns 20, he will eat then. He is a healthy boy, but really worries me that he doesn't want to eat like everybody else. So how did you, because you were selective for a while.
Well, actually, I was a good eater. The reason why I was eating the yogurt and Jell-O in the movie is when I got in my 20s, I had terrible problems with anxiety, terrible colitis attacks. And then when I went on antidepressant medication, real low doses of it, the colitis attacks actually stopped because my nervous system wasn't in such a state of stress. But there were times where the colitis attacks were so bad that everything went through me, and that's why I ate yogurt and Jell-O. And then I would gradually wean off of that. And I actually hated yogurt. I had one doctor wanted me to drink buttermilk. That's like liquid vomit. I had to chug that stuff down. Ugh.
Yeah.
And then I would wean back gradually onto regular food, some saltine crackers. And then I'll go and do a talk, and there in the green room's a whole bunch of little Jell-O things. And I just hate Jell-O. It was something I had to do because of colitis. But let's just talk about kids that are picky eaters. One way to help to get them into it is trying new things, is let them get involved with food preparation, where they can play with the food out in the kitchen. We don't play with food at the dining room table. Want to have manners there, but in the kitchen we can play with food and explore it. Sometimes that's helpful. And one of my big concerns, if a kid just eats just 2 really restricted things, is the old vitamin deficiency diseases. I was just looking at one of my autism newsletters, and there was some kids that got scurvy. That's vitamin C deficiency, because of being on a very, very restricted diet, and they weren't taking any vitamins. Get food preparation. Just get them involved in that. And they get to play with it, and then they might want to taste it, and that's a simple thing to do.
Food is a very sensory experience. I love that idea. Another question. Good morning, Dr. Grandin. I have a 10-year-old son diagnosed at 5 years old, went from verbal to nonverbal. We started ABA therapy at 5 years, and he has a lot of words now dominated by a strong mouth stimulation, echoing, scripting almost 95% of the day. Because of his scripting behavior, the school hold him at ASD 1. He knows his alphabet, his numbers, some sight words. He can read short phrases, well potty trained since 2 years, very independent. I'm trying all I know. Please help me. Any strategies that can help us decrease the echoing?
Well, there's 3 ways basically the brain's be messed up on speech. When I was a little kid, the grown-ups talked fast. I thought grown-ups had a foreign language. That's why that was grown-up talk. And I have some auditory processing. And one thing my speech teacher did with me, she'd hold up a cup, or maybe she'd hold up a pen, and she'd say pen, and then she'd say penna, where she'd enunciate it, and she'd switch back and forth. And then I had problems with getting speech out. I personally was never echolalic, where I might recite a movie script out. But they're been some success with echolalic kids. If you can take the movie script that they don't know what it means, they yak out a movie script. Why a movie script? Because when they watch that on the television, it's always said the same way. Like if I said dog, that's a Harvard accent. Dog, that's some other accent. See, it sounds like a different word, but that TV always says it exactly the same way. So that's why they'll script a commercial or a movie that they can play over and over again. But sometimes you can work some of the words from that movie into the real world. They'll start to learn that language is real. Also, a lot of kids have a lot of sensory issues. And kids that don't get functional language often live in a sensory disordered world. Now, there's two books I'd really recommend that people read where they have a kid that does not get really good functional language. And one is Tito Mukapadahe, How Can I Talk If My Lips Don't Move? It's available online as an ebook. Okay, ebook distribution is no problem. You can get ebooks, audiobooks. That's just fine. It's physical books where there's problems. But this book, Tito Mukapadahe, he has a lot of movements he can't control, looks really severe, but he's basically got a locked-in syndrome. There's a good brain in there, and he can type independently. I have seen him. And he talks about a sensory disordered world. His mom always took him out there, but you read that book, you're really going to get some insight into what maybe your child might be experiencing. And I want to use the word might. Another really good book is the sequel to The Reason I Jump. I can never remember the exact title because it's something like fall down 5 times, get up 9 times, but it's the sequel. And he describes things like not being able to control his movements. He was sort of like a broken robot. And these books will give you insight. These people that type completely independently, the sequel to The Reason I Jump. And that's all of this, they're available in electronic. And then, of course, I always like to promote my own book, The Way I See It, which has just come out in a new edition, available electronically from Amazon, physical book from Future Horizons.
Wonderful. So the sequel is fall down 7 times, get up 8.
Okay.
I can remember the 78, but I want to know how long did it take you before you could say Tito, I can't even pronounce his last name. How long did it take you to learn that, Temple?
Well, that took a little while. And don't ask me how to spell it.
Okay.
And
we
the
won't hold
title
you
of
responsible.
his book is How Can I Talk If My Lips Don't Move? But if you're working with, I'm not talking about 3-year-olds here. I don't recommend these books for people with 3-year-olds. But you got an older kid, doesn't have functional language. I think these books are must reads because they're going to give you tremendous insight into what's going on.
Wonderful. Somebody wants to know, my 13-year-old son seems to avoid speaking about autism-related conversations. At one point, I felt he was depressed. Suggestions?
Well, the thing is, things interesting on how you view autism. You go out to Silicon Valley, to big tech companies that bring you the technology we're using, and they avoid the label. They don't want to be labeled, with a disability. And then I see other kids where autism becomes their entire identity. I don't think that's good either. Maybe something more in the middle might be better. For me, autism is an important part of who I am, but being a scientist and a problem solver right now, I work on a lot of different things trying to solve problems. That comes first for me. I think I just talked to a really interesting person. I have to keep some confidentiality. This is a person who works for a major important technological stuff, had an IQ off the charts in everything, never got labeled with autism, but then she had a high IQ. She said, well, I could go places. Well, she was waiting on tables one day, and she waited on 2 people that opened up to the door into a fabulous technological career. I have to keep confidentiality, but yes. She recognized, and then when the guys talked to her, they recognized her intelligence and she was invited right in. That's back door. And the thing is, she recognized that back door, but her label was high IQ. It was the only label that she had. She's a person, 50s, a bit of an older person. But you see, I did the same thing in my career. There's a scene in the HBO movie where I go up and I get the editor's card because I realized if I wrote for that magazine, that would really help my career. and she recognized the door and she went through it and she was waiting on tables. Sometimes you just don't know who you're waiting on. See, half of all good jobs are gotten through the back door anyway. All good jobs.
I believe that too. Okay, somebody wants to know, glad to see you ladies. What are the signs that a kid will reach a high functioning level? My son is 6 years old. He is functionally verbal and has a moderate level of autism. He has been receiving ABA for 3 years now.
I can't answer specifically, but let's just look at 6 years old. Okay, we'll ask you about the speech. Can he ask questions? Can he request things? Can he read? I was 8 years old and I couldn't read. And mother taught me with phonics. And I went very quickly from the 3rd grade level up to the 6th grade level of reading. But let's just look at the skills. The thing is, a person with autism or a child with autism, they blossom. I've had parents say, well, I got my kid out doing all these things, got my kid out on a boat, never thought he'd get on a boat. And they get out and do things. You just don't know. But there's a tendency to overprotect. What you want to do is stretch and say, well, would you want to go on a boat or would you want to go for a hike? You know, give them a choice, but get them out there doing things. And they can sometimes really blossom. They can do a lot more than what you think. And,
absolutely.
And I'm a visual thinker, so I don't really relate to terms like level 1 or moderate. I'm going to go, okay, let's just look at the skills. Dress, shower. Let's start with the basics. Potty. Okay, should be learning some reading skills, writing skills. Maybe he has motor issues. Well, then he can type. There's a reason why keyboards were invented. You know, what can he do? It's when kids are really little, you just can't tell. I looked horrible when I was a real little kid, just horrible.
I want to bring up, since you brought up your mother, that your mom, Eustacia Cutler, is going to be with us on Friday.
Good.
And she's going to be answering questions, and she's going to speak a little bit about a bunch of things. And so she's asked that people send their questions in early, and that she wants to answer questions on a general nature. We're working out a way that she can meet with people to answer questions individually. She prefers to do it that way. So we're asking for you to send your questions in for Eustacia. You can do that as soon as the show is over, because later on today, I'm going to go over some of the questions with her. But we're really excited to have your mom on Friday.
Well,
Temple.
good. That's just great. But I'm going to be, you know, like that. It's hard. First of all, I don't have enough information to answer things absolutely specifically. But there's a tendency, and I can understand why Silicon Valley avoids the labels, to become the label. Like this lady, I just talked to her. She had high IQ. She started talking to these tech guys. Next thing, they're taking her over to the workplace and they're hiring her.
Yeah. Yes. Because
I'm pretty sure she's on the autism spectrum.
There we go.
Sure. Just in talking to her, and I'm pretty sure she's autistic. I can't say for sure, but.
Right. I love Howie Mandel. He has a phrase. He says, you know, let's stop talking about what somebody can't do. Let's look at what they can do. He says, let's not talk about disability. Let's talk about this ability.
Well, this is what Stephen Hawking has to say. Y'all know who Stephen Hawking is.
Yes.
Concentrate on the things. Your disability does not prevent you from doing well.
There we go. I love it.
I really like that.
I like that too. I also like different but equal, and we know who started that.
Yeah.
That would be you.
Yeah.
Wonderful friend. Okay, next question. Someone told me that fine motor is also connected to oral motor. What are your thoughts about that? They say that their son is having trouble lifting his tongue.
Well, you need to go to a specialist on that. You know, occupational therapist, physical therapist. Yeah, you definitely need to see a specialist. I am not qualified to.
Have you ever heard of the fine motor, though, being connected to the oral motor? I've never heard that before.
Well, I would definitely go to a specialist. Now, I have my other favorite thing I do, and that's reading scientific papers. Then I might end up going deep into the literature, but I recommend you get professional advice on that.
M says, this is interesting. I'm autistic and you talk about it well. Michelle wants to say hi to you.
Oh, thank you.
Devin says, I'm also autistic with Asperger's syndrome. When I was in hospital, my mother said that I have Asperger's to the nurses, and they did not know a bit about it, which is fascinating. Okay. Next question. My son is 4, and so it's so hard to get him to focus on anything besides his routine play. Any suggestions at all for a 4-year-old who always wants to play the same thing, Temple?
Well, when I was maybe 5 or so, or 6 years old, I would just draw the same horse head over again. And mother would suggest, well, let's draw the rest of the horse's body. Now, I need to, before I can actually give you any specific advice, I need to know what he does over and over again. Because what you want to try to do is take whatever he does. Let's say it's lining up blocks. Let's just say it's that. Well, then let's turn it into a turn-taking game where we're going to take turns lining up the block. I do a block, you do a block. Let's just start out with something very simple like that to try to broaden it into a turn-taking game. And when I was that age, there was a lot of emphasis on turn-taking games done with board games, a little bit older card games. You've got to learn to wait your turn. Okay, let's say he's spinning a wheel on a toy car. Well, then we're going to share the car and take turns with it. And then hand the car back and forth. We'll take turns spinning the wheel. Then I want to broaden it out into driving the car around. And we're going to go to different places in the living room, like the bookcase or the chair leg, just something like that. Just very simple things like that, broaden it.
Wonderful. This is a tough one. My 10-year-old nonverbal grandson started hitting himself very hard in his face, leaving bruises, hiding under a blanket, even when going out, and being very disconnected. Doctor said it's puberty. What's your thought? It's heartbreaking.
Well, you better get some professional advice on that. The other thing you've got to look at is exactly when did the behavior start? Okay, this is a basic principle in animal behavior. I don't care if it's dog behavior, horse behavior, you got some kind of a problem. People tend to overgeneralize. I want to know exactly when that started. Puberty comes on somewhat gradually. Maybe there was a traumatic event, something like that, a death in the family. I don't know. But I've got to figure out what the behavior might be related to something. Now, there's some kids that hit themselves, and I've read first-person accounts about this, and they don't even realize they're doing it in some cases. Sometimes occupational therapy, sensory stuff can help on this. But there's a big mistake in animal behavior and in human behavior to overgeneralize. And people say, oh, my horse just goes berserk. Well, after questioning the person, I found out there was one specific place where a horse went berserk. And when he was tied up in the cross ties, because he'd had an accident in the cross ties. So then we stopped using cross ties. So I'm going to ask you, when does this behavior occur?
Yeah.
It isn't something, you're going to you need to do something about this. This is serious.
I think, Temple, a lot of, in the early years when our kids are diagnosed, a lot of the stuff we hear is that people will say, well, autism, it's a lot of, they do a lot of random, strange behavior. But I know I've certainly learned over the years, there's nothing random.
Not random. It's not random.
There's a reason for everything.
Well, what I did, I can remember I was allowed to do an hour after lunch of spinning a brass plate that covered up a bolt on the bed frame. And when I did these repetitive things, it was calming. That's why the kid does it. But the problem is, if you let a kid do it all day, nothing's going to go into his head. It's okay to do a little bit of stimming to calm down. That's okay. But
there you go.
Doing it all day is not okay because you shut off the brain. I remember doing it. I remember winding up the swings, letting them twirl. It was almost like taking the drug. And so a little bit of just non-hurtful repetitive behavior like spinning something is fine. But then she'd get me out and we were expected to sit down and have meals together, do games where we take turns, have table manners. If I put my finger in my drink, mother would say, use the spoon to stir it, just manners stuff.
What was it that you loved about spinning the plate? What was it that made you feel better?
I loved watching it because when I spun something, I'd spin it with different amounts of force. And then I could watch, well, how long would it spin? How would it wobble as it stopped spinning? And tiny little details of how it behaved.
Which is really being scientific.
Yeah, I can remember dribbling sand through my hands. And I would just study each little grain, like looking at it under a microscope. And one thing I loved doing as a child was doing sand castles where you dribble sand through your hands. I really liked doing that. And it's okay to do some of that stuff. But the problem is if a kid does it all day,
Yeah.
they're not going to learn anything else, like playing video games all the day. Yeah, you might get really good at playing video games, but you're not going to learn anything else.
Do you still do anything like the spinning the plate or like the sand through your fingers? That's part of your daily?
I do a lot of doodling on papers. I'll do a lot of that kind of stuff. I've got like 25 binder clips in a chain that I'll sometimes manipulate when I'm on the phone.
Love it.
They're
Love it.
up they're in my upstairs office.
So Temple, we have a very special guest who's going to be on the show on Thursday. He is a young man who he's on the autism spectrum. He's an actor and he's a professional actor. He's 17 years old. He was first on Speechless. Then he played an autistic young boy on The Good Doctor.
Good.
And now he has a great role on the hit Netflix show Lock and Key.
Okay.
And he plays an autistic young man on that. He's going to be joining us on Thursday. His name is
Good.
Kobe Bird. He's a big fan of yours.
Oh, well, great.
And
Thank you.
and so I was talking to him and his mom last night. They want to know, do you still utilize something like your cow squisher?
No, that broke about 10 years ago and I never got around to fixing it. So then I started hugging real people. Now we're not allowed to do that now with social distancing. So
Was the real people giving you the same thing that the cow squisher was giving you?
well, I didn't need as much from the cow squisher. Now, one thing that I still have got to do is I got to do a burst of intense exercise every day. And if I don't do it, even taking a low dose of antidepressants, if you want to read about that, that's in my book, Thinking in Pictures. And it's available in ebook, easy to get ebook. And if the medication alone doesn't do it, but a burst of hard exercise. I used to do 100 sit-ups on the bed, and then my sciatic nerve was hurting me. So now I'm doing modified push-ups. Do I like exercising? No, I hate it. But to get up to 100 sit-ups, that took a long time to work up to that. I want to emphasize that. I started out doing like 3. That was 6 months to work up to that.
Wow,
And
I'm impressed.
But if I don't do that burst of hard exercise, then I have trouble with sleeping. And I found that I'd added up like how much airport walking I did. That just doesn't seem to do the same things as the burst of hard exercise.
I've been listening. You said that when you were with us on the 2nd of April, and I've been trying to add a burst of hard exercise, and I find that it's helping me too, Temple. So
Well,
you've
good.
inspired
And
me.
work up to it slowly. I don't want anybody having
Yes.
a heart attack here.
No,
So
no,
I want
no,
to
no.
emphasize
Taking it slow.
working up slowly. But there's something, and I think there's starting to be some scientific evidence about a burst of hard exercise where slow walk, I have to get myself breathing hard a bit.
Yeah. Love it. Okay, somebody's written in and said, I am autistic, but diagnosed as an adult. I am 30 now, was diagnosed 2 years ago. I know that whenever I was a child, I was reading before my 4th birthday, but did not speak until I was 6. When I did finally speak, I was speaking on the same fluency as my peers. And I believe that the reason I was able to speak so well was because my immediate family still spoke to me and would have conversation with me as if I was able to use my voice. What do you think about that, Temple?
Well, I think that's important. I think that's important. One of the things that, Soma did with Tito, and how can I talk with Soma? She took him everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, they were from India, so they go on the outdoor markets and railroad station and all kinds of places like that, noise and stuff. She took them everywhere, and we got to get these kids out doing things. Now, what do you do about the sound sensitivity? Well, I think I may have talked about that before. Give the kid control. Let the kid turn that dreaded hairdryer on and off. And then he's going to find it fun to blow things around the house with it when he can control it.
Okay. We're getting a couple of questions for your mom, which is really great. But I would sort of love to know your opinion on this. They're asking, they want to ask your mom, how do you teach hygiene? They have a daughter who's 18, high functioning autism, has to be reminded about deodorant. It bothers me that she's not mindful about daily care. Now, clearly your mom taught you manners, and she, because you are a professional, and, hygiene is a very big deal. I've heard you lecture about people presenting themselves cleanly and getting their hair taken care of. What do you think made that important to you? Was it something that your mom did, or was it something just in you?
It's something that a guy in the construction industry did. There's the scene in the movie where the boss slams down the deodorant. And they actually took two bosses in the movie and combined them. It was actually a construction boss that did that. And I wanted the job. And he basically told me I had to clean it up. It was that simple. And I wanted the job. And that's something. Now, back in the 70s, they had these gunky, awful roll-ons. You know, now the solid sticks, you don't even feel them. There's no excuse for not using solid stick. And I get the unscented type. No, you have to clean it up. It's just that simple.
Do you think it's better coming from somebody other than mom, or do you think it could be from anybody?
Well, the thing that made the big difference on me, it was this was a job I really wanted. And he slammed down the deodorant just like it was shown in the movie and said, "You stink, use it." Exactly what he did. I showed Mick Jackson, the director, exactly how to slam it down. And I realized I had to clean it up. Yeah. No, it doesn't mean that you have to become a different person. I still dress eccentric, but you just can't be a rude, filthy slob.
Do you consider the way you dress eccentric?
Well, it's a little different, but it's important to look presentable, and dirty, filthy T-shirt, that's not okay. You wear a T-shirt, but it needs to be a clean one. And
I seem to recall that there's a story about when you went to go to the Emmys. Was there discussion about what you were going to wear about that? Am I crazy?
No, I wore a shirt that was a gift from my sister. It's my top was Ralph Lauren. My bottom was Walmart. Black Walmart. One of the reasons why I wear Walmart dress pants is because they don't itch. I got to have pants that don't itch. And they make really nice dress pants and not very expensive, but I thought that was kind of funny to have Ralph Lauren on my top and Walmart on the bottom.
Was there somebody who was pressuring you to like wear a ball gown
No, it wasn't. I wouldn't wear a ball gown. No.
I mean, it's in this day and age, I think everybody is allowed to dress how they want to dress. I
was dressed up. There actually was a Ralph Lauren shirt that my sister gave me, and that's the reason why I wore it.
You looked great. Yeah, you looked great. And when Claire won and you stood up, I think we all cried. We all were just like beside ourselves.
And then I grabbed the mic and I said, "Mom, I know you're nervous. Stand up." And then the boom camera came over and took a picture of her. And she stood up.
There was an amazing moment. I'm sure it was an amazing moment for you guys, but it was an amazing moment for all of us, Temple, to see you in that way. It was like